The understanding of meaning making is a very important aspect in responding to and understanding a work. So what you see on the left hand side here, it's very easily understood because it has got something universal about it. You know that boot is an oppressor, and then the people that you see below is somebody who is being oppressed or a victim. That across the cultures, across geographical areas, somebody can understand. But that, what you see on that side, is difficult unless somebody knows about the icon of Gandhi or what kind of futures that really make the image of Gandhi in people's mind. Maybe the spectacle, round spectacle and charka and the, that pocket watch that he was carrying and so on. So this idea that visual language is universal is only partially true. There are some visuals that you can connect with across the cultures, across physical boundaries, geographical boundaries, and could be communicated. But there are some part of the visual language, unless you are part of that visual culture or that area, it's very difficult to communicate. The study of this meaning making is called semiotics. It's a study of signs and symbols and what they mean in the context that it is being used and how it is being interpreted. Now if you see this image here, it is a house which I see on my walks every day. By building this house, the owner is revealing something about himself. One is that of power, because it is built in stone, right? And then you will also see that it's partly a historic kind of reference, the turret and Greek kind of pillars and all that. Partly it is also about mixing with the modern, that the glass surface. And then there is also a lion here. There is one lion here and one more lion here. And on the other side also there is a lion. And historically, any building which is dealing with power is made in stone because it is supposed to last longer. That means it doesn't, get destroyed very easily. So, and the other very interesting aspect is that it doesn't welcome you inside. It somehow speaks, no, don't come inside. It has got that kind of, how a fort is actually about protecting and keeping people away. So this building speaks about not letting you in. In a way, if I have to put it in a nutshell, it is about the power and aggressive nature that the owner of the house is trying to convey through the building. And when you start seeing this, you will start seeing that each house says something about the owner in a visual way, right? So owner cannot stand there and give you explanation. This is who I am. So he will find you substitute material and substitute imagery which will say something about him or her. And then if you observe here, the steps are actually occupying the footpath. It is not within the compound. That means that one more gesture, one more marker of look, I can do whatever I want. So you will find this kind of visual markers everywhere, and it need not be from the art field. Once you start understanding how this works, it's very easily you can translate that understanding to the understanding visual art. Like you will see on many tempos, autos and vehicles that fly around in Bangalore, in anywhere else, there will be a lot of lion, and then you will find a bull, and then the auto owner would have put don't touch me because I'll come and hit you. All kinds of messages are there. That means the owner or the driver is trying to tell you something about himself through those images. So any kind of marker, it is called signifier. It can be anything. It can be a shirt, it can be an image, but it is called signifier. And what that is the actual, like it can be a stone, it can be cloth, plastic, anything. And the meaning that comes from that is called signified. That is that is the mental concept that you are, like how I was explaining about the stone being a very powerful element of power, element of somebody who is in higher position and all that. So we tend to use this as a signifier all the time. By dressing in a certain way, we communicate to others, or we read from others who they are. Like if I wear a panche and come today and putting one tilakam and all, you will read me as a different person. Or if I wear a three-piece suit, you will read me differently. So this kind of visual reading we are doing on a daily basis, minute by minute basis in fact, and then we understand that visual coding and decoding that is happening. So that is the understanding of signifier and signified. And this is an interesting image. This was a person in Pune. He passed away. He was murdered in fact. And he made a shirt made of gold because he wanted to show that he is wealthy. Now we find different kind of markers to show I am wealthy. You need not actually put up that much of gold. You can put a branded shirt. So that becomes a substitute for showing that I am rich and I can wear this. And now if by wearing something you are saying something about yourself, that I am so and so, I am maybe a Brahmin or a Gauda or rich or poor and things like that. So if I am not wearing anything, what does it mean? That means the attachment to the outside is not there. So that is the meaning of the Bahubali. There is a very interesting story of how he kind of gave up even wearing a simple cloth. It seems after taking bath, he was wearing a white panche, and then he was coming away from the river, and then there was a thorny plant, and then his panche got stuck in that. And the question for him was, if I say I don't have any belongings, and if I pull that piece of cloth from that weed, that means I am claiming my ownership on the cloth. He said, no, I don't want it. That means I don't have any possessions and I am just complete within myself without any outside markers. That is the Digambara, Shvetambara and Digambara. Digambara means the entire outer, this one is your cloth. That means you are self-sufficient in your own body, and that is a kind of philosophy. Now we also do this whenever we see lot of objects. You go to somebody's house and then they will say, wait for 5 minutes, and you start looking around, then you start making narratives, or you try to understand what this family is about. You will see some trophies, you will see some travel souvenirs and things like that. Then you understand how many people are there, are they wealthy, are they religious, are they belong to some kind of sect. So all this comes through without anybody saying a single word. So that means we are using objects to convey visually to others what we are, who we are. If you didn't want people to see it, you would have kept it inside. So the fact that you are putting it outside, and now by also looking at this, we can make out this is from a very rich aristocratic family because there is a painting, and then in this level, painting becomes an object of possession. Like if I am putting up a Tayyab Mehta or a Picasso in my house, it is not only about enjoying that painting on my wall, but it also becomes a currency, a kind of substitute, a marker to show that I am very wealthy. If I can put up a Picasso in my house, equals I am very rich. So that is the kind of language that painting starts speaking about. And then you go to a bachelor's home, it's a very different kind of marker. You go to a low income group or from a village, they all have different codes. We know if you put up this kind of garland, that means that person is not there. But that coding is a understanding that we have built in our surroundings. Somebody who is coming from another culture will not be able to decode that. So in any kind of signifier, there are two levels. One is that what it is. Like if I say the stop signal, red signal, stop means stop, but it can also become a danger. Or if I use an apple, it can be a physical apple, but it can also become a symbol for the first Adam and Eve, or it can become a symbol for healthy living lifestyle, and so on. Or if I use a crown, crown can be just a crown, or it can become a substitute for the king who wears it. So this is the way the visual language is decoded. So that connotation means the kind of cultural meaning we give for that object or for that image or a marker. And denotation means the literal, like how I say chair means chair. It doesn't mean anything else. But normally we don't see any object only at the level of denotation. We always connotate the image with various other meanings which are given by the cultural and society that it is being. Now here there is a problem in the sense red is written in green color, blue is written in red like that, but still we understand. That means in many parts of the language there is actually no direct relation between the object and the word we use for that. Like if I say chair, somebody somewhere along the line decided that this should be called chair. Then we start sometimes adding one more word to that, easy chair or business chair and things like that to bring little more clarity to that. But otherwise, language is a kind of communally agreed set of codes and decodes. Like if I have to call something a tree, that means somewhere along the line somebody decided it should be called tree and then everybody agreed. But there can be changes in the meaning also. There are many words, many images which have lost their original meaning and it has become something else. Now we all know this ABCD chart, A for apple, B for bat and all, but it can be an interesting exercise to see what else that A can mean for. Because of the childhood and the upbringing, the moment I say A for apple only, that is the kind of the conditioning that we have, and you can start creating other kind of associations, and thereby it becomes a creative interpretation of the kind of associations we make with alphabets. Let us take a very simple example, a signal light in a traffic. We know red means stop, but we don't do it unless there is a cop there. That is a different issue. But somebody who is coming from a village will not understand this coding system. You see in the Majestic area, there are a lot of people who are confused about what to go, how to go, what to read. So this coding and decoding system is built within the urban culture, and from the childhood we teach the child, red means you have to stop, green means you have to go. In the school they put up a chart and explain, and it is conditioned. Without that, this has got no meaning. And just imagine, tomorrow I become the mayor of the city and then I decide we'll change the colors of the traffic signal and I'll make them multicolor. You can imagine the kind of chaos it will bring in, because we all agreed red means stop, green means go, and tomorrow I change it means the entire language has been shifted. The kind of the matrix that we created has shifted. This Pierre Vivant, he has created this sculpture in a circle. It's not a working traffic signal, but it talks about how this very, very simple traffic signal can talk about the language as a cluster of meanings. I'm sure you are familiar with this kind of imagery, the way we decode the caps. Like if I wear a certain kind of cap, I come from a certain area or a cultural background or from different country. Like I can say this is from Northeast or maybe Malaysia, and this is from Rajasthan, this is from a European country, this is from an Arabian or Arabic country like that. So we have these typologies or types which we try to use it to identify people. And many times, though it's part of the visual coding, it can lead to various kinds of miscommunication also. Now some of this was done in India when the Britishers came, when they occupied us. They did an entire study of the Indian people. The People of India is a book where the researchers from the British government, they went around, they started documenting how people dress. So these People of India, it was an anthropological project, and they started documenting how people dress and who are these people, in a sense, what are their community, what is their religion and so on. And that understanding, till now it has shaped the Indian politics. And if you go to some of the museums like Bhavdaji Lad Museum, which is a co-museum with Victoria and Albert Museum, you will see the types. Like this is how a Brahmin will dress, this is how some other community will dress and so on. And the repercussion of that you will still see in the way we look at the advertisement, or we look at the characters that you see in the Bombay movies, Mumbai Bollywood movies. It's a Goan means that Goan has to be shown in a certain way. If it's a South Indian, he has to wear a panche, he or she should be dark and then speak Hindi in a very drawl, manner and so on. So this kind of creating a type that comes from a certain understanding of how the Indians can be identified and then typified. And that continues, it doesn't stop there. And politicians use that to communicate with people that we belong to you. Like if they go to Rajasthan, the politician wear a Rajasthani pagdi, and if he goes to Northeast, they will wear a Northeast cap like that. Or if they come to Mysore, they will wear a Mysore peta. The idea is that I will reflect who you are, and by that I am going to get a kind of empathy with the audience who are in front of me. And normally we also don't read images as a single image. We try to look at what is there next to it. In another segment we saw how the association makes a series of meanings. So by looking at image clusters, we understand more than what that one single image means. Now this is on a vehicle, this idea of a muscular man, and if you see it on a very big vehicle, then the power of that will increase, but if you put it on an auto, then it will be so much more less. And I'm sure you have seen in many autos they put Ferrari. That is more like expecting oneself to become a bigger vehicle at some point, but at the moment it is like a contradiction. So we look at images and then we understand the context in which it is being understood. Now on the left hand what we see is a poor man wearing a tattered cloth, and it is also sold at very high prices in a branded shop. And then we don't mistake that, because we look at something in a context and then understand. So whenever there is a text, there is also a context that comes to that. Otherwise, the meaning can be misread also. It happens with color also. It is not just imagery. Same color, it can become a symbol of protest, it can become a symbol of mourning, or it can become a religious symbol. The black, Ayappa, they go in the January Sankranti time, or it can become a very classic color in fashion. So the same color can have many meanings depending on the context. Similarly, images also may not have a single meaning depending on where you are using and with what other image you are using and the location, then the meanings are also constructed around that. This is understanding what red can mean. It can mean violence, it can mean a kind of red tape in a bureaucratic setup, or it can mean about victory, or it can become very stylish car symbol, or it can also be a very culturally loaded color. Like the moment you wear that red on your for a Hindu woman, that means you are wedded and all that, and then that becomes a big symbol of whether your husband is alive or not. So the entire cultural symbolism starts getting read by that one mark there. We also read in the sense we understand the visual markers on people's faces. In India, there are so many religions, so many sects. So you know whether somebody is a Vaishnava or a Shaiva or an Aghori and so on by looking at the kind of marking they make on their head or the dress they wear. And this is where I was emphasizing on the common ground. If there is no common ground, somebody who is from another culture will not be able to decode this kind of meaning from the visual markers. Similarly, as I said, the red bindi that is worn, and that is also used in the gallery. In the galleries, when a painting is sold, you put a red sticker next to that. And it is also used when you Swiggy your non-vegetarian food. So we don't mix up that because you see that in a specific context. We don't misunderstand that girl is sold. No, we understand that as a religious and cultural symbol. So that is the kind of, I'm trying to make a connection between the image and how it is used and how we understand that. Now this is a very interesting advertisement I saw in one of the bus stops, and it says, if you ignore this red today, the traffic signal red, she may never wear red tomorrow. Okay? Just this one advertisement, you can know so much about how the image is being produced and how it is circulated and who is the consumer. there is an assumption here that the person who is reading the advertisement is a Hindu, because in other communities that connotation is not there. And then there is an assumption that it is a man who is riding the vehicle, not the girl. See, so much of preconceived ideas there. And then as if, and also the next this one is, if you lose your husband, your entire life is over. As if the woman doesn't have any other existence other than, so this is the kind of preconceived cultural notions which come through in one very simple image. If you start decoding that, then you really understand what is happening in the background, or in the in making of that image itself. Like how we decoded the water carrier girl, and how it becomes a gaze made by a male artist, consumed by a male collector, and so on. This is also a very interesting image. Now just see this. This girl is very modern, as we understand, because if you're conservative, the understanding goes, you wear a sari and so on. The moment you wear pant and then t-shirt and all that, and then you are going for shopping with a shopping trolley, not even a cloth bag. So you have done that, but just see this. That red bindi there will bring you back into the fold of the tradition. You do all this, but you still have to be traditional. So that one small detail will say so much about how this has to be understood. And artists, if they are sensitive, try to look at all this, and it becomes part of their vocabulary. Now you also see a lot of signifiers and about the nation state, how you use the color, and especially during Independence Day and then Republic Day. Nowadays, though, it has become very fashionable to put these 3-color balloons in all the shops, and then flags are sold. Children are wearing that kind of dress and so on. So it becomes a popularly accepted set of coding which conveys that I am a nationalist, or I believe in this idea of a nation state. And I have seen this kind of food being prepared. I took that picture, and it is very interesting how it has come to that last point. So I'm just coming back to that idea of what material can convey to you. If this particular image of a house that is built in stone and which looks like a tower, it looks like a castle, then what is the meaning of a kind of image that you see a thatched kind of temporary shanty that is part of a slum? So immediately you understand the economic consequences of that, or what does it mean to be in that house. Maybe a similar kind of structure which is made in sand, because of the material, you will understand it is not a stable structure. It has got a very temporary kind of nature. The next big wave will ease out and it is gone. So here, because of the material, the castle image gets more power, but here, because of the material, it means something else. So the image always doesn't mean the same thing. In what material it is made, that brings out another layer of meaning to the whole reading that we do. So what Sheila Gowda has done is that she has picked up these asphalt drums, and then she has made a structure which almost looks like a turret of a castle and so on, but it is made from a material which signifies to some extent poverty and labor and so on. And then you can go inside here, and then when you go inside, you have to almost crawl, because that is the kind of the scale that you have these structures made of this tar drum. And then once you go inside, she has made these holes in the roof. It's like a dark space. So those holes which bring light can be seen in many different ways. One is that it can somehow connect you with this starry night, with a ray of hope and so on, or it can mean again a sense of poverty where it can leak and so on. So using material, the contemporary artists play around a lot in bringing very complex meanings in the kind of sculptures and installations they do. Now this is Subodh Gupta. He has used this cow dung patties, and then this entire structure is built. Now just imagine this same structure I go and install in a village. it will be a kind of curiosity for the villagers, because they think, what is this, use it every day, there is no special connotation or speciality to this whole material. You dislocate that material, bring it to a museum, and becomes a curiosity. It gets this very exotic kind of aura around it, and then in a way, instead of making a village landscape, the artist is actually bringing the material which is part of the village to the museum space, and then it comes with smell. So you're adding one more layer or one more aspect to the whole installation, and then the third aspect is it can be dismantled and taken somewhere else, and then put up in a slightly different way. So he says this material reminded him of his mother. So wherever he goes, in a way that memory and association carries with him, and this kind of associations, especially, let's say this has been shown outside India also, it gets even more richer in terms of the kind of association it builds up in the viewer's mind. In many of the Western countries, the idea of India is like it's a village and poverty and so many other things which has been reinforced again and again by various means, that will get once more reinforced by this kind of material. But it also gives them a slice of the village life itself, instead of just a landscape of a village, maybe one cow here, one chicken there, and things like that. You see, Jitish Kalath, he made this structure, what you see here, in Bhavdaji Art Museum. It's in Mumbai. And whenever you see this kind of bamboo structure, the understanding we have is that there is some repair going on. It's like under construction kind of. The moment you see that, one, you stay away a little bit because something may slip and fall. The other is you definitely know repair is going on, and then something more is coming up. Now, actually these were not the bamboo structure, bamboo poles, but he had cast them in fiberglass. And there are various kinds of animal images and all that. And this is one of the British person whose sculpture you see there. And when you start putting this kind of installation around that, one is that people think there is some repair going on, they pass away, then they come back and they start making another kind of connection. So the meaning of this also changes because these other aspects of this sculpture or installation is laid around that. So these are called site-specific installation. That means where the artwork or the installation is being located will bring its own meaning to the artwork itself. Now let's say we take this and put it in Bamboo Bazaar. It will not remain that kind of artwork, but it may get another kind of meaning, right? So this is the kind of understanding that the artists have about material and the location and context. This is a Sudarshan Shetty installation, and the way it is projected as though it has been excavated from that location, and it is put up for display. And next to that there was also a tent which kind of indicated there was some kind of excavation going on, and there were paraphernalia related to digging and all kept there. So by that extension, this became a kind of archaeological finding, and you start looking at it that way because of the location. And also he has used all old wood pieces, recycled wood and all that. So it becomes even more curious because the old pieces have their own memory, and then he combines those memories and reconstructs in a very different way. In another segment, we spoke about how we reconstruct history, we reconstruct the past in multiple ways. So this is one such example of that. Tracy Emin put up this tent and it became a big controversy. Normally, our private lives are kept private. We don't discuss with others who you had an affair with or how many people you slept with and so on. But she made this work and she says everyone I've ever slept with, and she gave a timeline also. From with this year to this year, this many people, and the names were there. And also tent is something where you feel very comforted. It is like you go out and then you have the tent, you know that is your little space, and that is being inverted here. In the sense, whatever is private is being made very public. And in that sense, you are forced to peek into her personal life, and then you become a viewer. Viewer in the sense, you are very curiously looking at those details, and you're making your own imagination run riot, and imagine all kinds of things. So that is another strategy artists use in making something very private into a public. What was a private signifier, a private marker? Normally, any diary, anything related to your private life, you just keep it inside. If somebody is coming home, your bedroom is normally not a no-go place because it's a private space. But here, she is willingly throwing everything open. And we are going to look at another work in another segment from her, where she has displayed her bed. In this segment, we have looked at some of the aspects of the meaning-making process in visual art. In the coming segment, we will be delving deeper into the process of meaning-making, also looking at how context alters the meaning of an image, how cultural space also brings its own variables. If you have enjoyed watching this video, please press like button. To see more such videos, subscribe to our channel. Thank you.